Today I'm going to go over the Necrons I've painted for Indomitus so far. This is 25 power level, or basically a combat patrol. I also added up in points. It's exactly 500 points of painted Necrons, so the smallest force that you can use in the game before you start doing kill team or stuff like that. Normally I do this kind of videos that show the models rotating and show off all the angles, but I figured something like this so I can talk about each unit a little bit, it'd be a little bit more personal. So let's go ahead and start looking at each unit one by one. Alright, what better place to start than the Necron Warrior? So these are actually the first models that I painted. This one right here is the test model that I did. You can tell because his tube is actually a little bit darker than the rest, and it's just I didn't dilute the color as much as the rest of them. So these guys, compared to the old Necron Warriors, they are way better in my opinion. Not only do they have more interesting poses, and they have all the damage parts, like this guy's got part of his eye showing here. They're a little bit more lurching and undead-like, but the way they even hold their guns is much more realistic. Here's one of them pointing his gun, and you can see the way they hold it. They got like a little handle coming off here at the side. And it's just a much more interesting pose than the classic underhand holding it like a rifle. It makes it more alien, more unique to them. So I got 10 of these painted so far. The other 10 I'm going to do with the other gun option, which is the double-barreled Gauss weapon. But for the first ones, I wanted to go with something that was classic. Something that is very iconic. Some of these guys have such cool heads, like this one. It's got like the cable sticking out the side of his head. I wanted to go for something with the color scheme very basic. So it's just metal with some turquoise and black for the gun, and then the glowing bits for the Gauss itself. But it's very quick and simple for me to do, so something that I could definitely see myself doing an entire army of pretty quickly. In fact, so this is 25 power level. Like I said, I painted this in about 2 to 3 weeks. The Necron Warriors took me about 3 days to do. In terms of hours, that's maybe 8 to 10 hours on this unit, but they're very, very quick. I actually have some old Necron Warriors right here too. This is from an army I did in 3rd edition. You can see I was going for kind of like a red feeling there on them. But just comparing the two, let's compare it to this guy right here. It's just, they're so much better looking. Better pose, better proportions. They're not doing the squat leg thing. The gun is sleeker. The way they hold the gun is better. One thing I've noticed specifically too is the heads. If you look, it's a small detail, but the space between the eyes and the cheek is much smaller. It's much more realistically skull-like on the new Necrons. Let's get one with a complete face instead of this guy. Whereas the old ones were much more stylized. It's got like the angry eyes going on. So the new one's got much more like flat line across the eye, and it's just more realistic and more menacing looking in my opinion. So the next unit I painted was the Scarabs. They come on the same sprue as the Necron Warriors, and these are again in my opinion, huge improvement on the old ones. I don't have any old Scarabs to compare them to, but they just have so much more character to them with the way their legs are and the way they're on the base. So they're kind of flying without having to have flying stands. Very nice. These were super quick. I painted them in a day, maybe like 3 hours worth of time. Not really much to them besides, the Scarab body themselves and the glowy bit, and like I did the little teal parts here. So I wanted to do damaged paint work on all of them to make it look like they are, they've risen out of the sands more. Alright, and the next unit I painted was a character because I wanted to have some stuff done for the community site. So I had the Warriors and the Scarabs, and I wanted at least one character, and the Plasmancer is just such a cool model. I just love how he's just kind of floating there. So again, I was going for an Egyptian theme, a Tomb King theme, with the teal and the gold and the sand bases. So I knew I wanted more gold on this guy, and I wasn't sure how much gold to do at first, actually, and I was messing around. I almost went back and repainted his cloak, but in the end, I think it looks really good. I really like the balance. You know, a little bit of gold on the staff there and there and there. Most of it's black and silver and the green glowing part, so he kind of fits in. Started doing a teal stripe on the head as well, instead of just the ones on the shoulders. And working some gold into that, and it's gonna be my signifier of rank. So like the Immortals will have a teal stripe down their head, whereas the characters will have teal stripe with gold in it, and then the Lich Guard and stuff will probably have a teal stripe with gold in it as well. He's also the first one I did the blade on, so I knew I wanted something simpler. The blades, the way the Heavy Metal team does it, is a lot of blending and a lot of work into getting that smooth effect. And again, I wanted this to be a fairly fast army, so I went for something simpler. After talking to some people, it's kind of like a black stone effect, maybe. I think it works. It has a slight green tint to it, so it's different than the black of like the staff and the weapons, so it's supposed to look like an alien, you know, blade material. But it keeps it pretty simple, keeps it within the colors. I'm a big fan of very limited color palettes, if you haven't noticed from some of my past armies, so I'm kind of trying to do that again here. And then these aren't the next guys I painted, but they go with them, so I actually just finished these. These are the Thralls, Crypt Thralls, I think is what they're called. His bodyguards, basically. So I wanted them to have some gold worked into them too, so they look like they belong to him. He's kind of, you know, they're bodyguards to the Plasmancer. So for the most part, they're the silver. I painted their claws like the blades on the rest of them. And then I worked some gold into the collar and gave him like the little gold on the beard there. For the most part, these guys, I painted them in a day as well. They're very quick, longer than the Scarabs, but still pretty fast. So the Scorpec Destroyers, these are super cool models. I was super excited to paint them. I really love the new aesthetic with like the spider leg, well, scorpion leg, Scorpec. They took me longer. They were probably closer to a week's worth of time. Maybe a little less, like 4 days, 5 days. But so for the most part, they're just silver, like the rest of the Necrons. They have the larger blades. So these, like I said, I had painted the blade on the Plasmancer before, but this is the first unit that I had done such a large area of the blade, and I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, but I think it works pretty well. Keeps them, you know, subdued. Again, they're not royalty. They're not super high up. They're the destroyers. They're the Necrons. They're going crazy. So I didn't want to do a ton of gold. It just had the teal on the shoulders, and I also put some teal along the spines here. But I just worked gold into the weapons. It breaks up the weapons a bit. And then also they had like a little cutout on their shoulders there where the teal goes. So I just painted that gold. It's a nice little accent. Works a little bit of gold into it. They're more important than the Warriors, but not as important as Immortals or Lich Guard or anything. But they were a ton of fun to paint. Definitely want to add some more of these to my army at some point. I was thinking about getting some more of the Indomitus ones, but I'm assuming that we'll get a proper multi-port kit at some point, so I'll just add those in whenever they come out. And then they have the Plasma Sight here, which is their little guy that follows them around and injects them with some energy. So he's very basic. Again, I didn't want anything special. He has no gold on him. He's a silver with some teal on the carapace there. One thing I did have to do, he's the first one I painted with some stonework on it. So I decided to go with like a sandstony effect to fit with the desert base. I think it turned out pretty good. It was very easy. It's just Wraithbone with Agrax in the recesses, and a little Agrax Earthshade near the bottom, diluted, then dry brush it with Pallid Witch Floss flesh, and that's it. I really like it. I'll probably do this on some scenery, like maybe my Warcry scenery. And then the metal just gave it like a goldy effect to break it apart from the rest of the model. Alright, and the last model to show off is the Reanimator here. I finished him a few days ago. Super cool. Again, I love this new aesthetic. It's very alien and very like otherworldly. I like it a lot better than some of the past Necron vehicles. You know, it's a Canaptic, so it's kind of like the robots that stay awake while the Necrons sleep. It's really cool. It's like a spider giraffe camel. So again, this is a very basic unit. I didn't want it to have a ton of flashy parts on it, so I did it mostly silver. Made sure it has lots of battle damage on it. It's got black casing on the parts of the guns around the glowy parts. It's got a lot of glowy stuff up there. I did the claws on the front, like the blades on the rest of the models. Figure it's combat weapons, so it's a little bit, you know, more deadly material than its legs. I worked some teal into the legs. Made sure it's all distressed a little bit there. I worked a little bit of teal onto its face. It's not super obvious, which is good. I didn't want it to be super obvious, and some gold up on the carapace, just to make it stand out a bit more. And then I had the Adeptus Mechanicus robots on the base, so this was interesting. Painted them red, and they stood out way too much, so I just doused them with Agrax Earthshade and did a lot of sponging with metals to dirty them up, and then when I painted the sand, I did a bunch of dry brushing onto the parts to, you know, make them look like they've been sitting there for a while. So hopefully it blends in, you know, it still stands out but doesn't distract you from the model, and they've got the sandstone parts on there as well. So I really like that guy. I'm excited to get the bigger one with the gun on top of it. The one thing I wanted to show was where my inspiration for this color scheme came from. So part of it is from the classic Necron color scheme. Part of it is from my Tomb Kings and Tomb Kings in general. But another part of it is a model I painted a long time ago. This is a 3rd edition model. I painted it, I don't know how old I was, in my teens at some point. I was going for a very dirty look, going for that Egyptian look as well. So you can see I got the teal already on there. I got the single stripe on the shoulder pads, just like with the new ones, and then a beigey color. So it's kind of the same color scheme. I didn't do the white face. That was a thing with Necrons back in 3rd edition. But that's where the inspiration for a lot of this came from, is taking a color scheme I did, you know, 15 to 20 years ago, and redoing it, refining it, and making it look better on the newer models. It was just nice to kind of every now and then go back to something you did when you were younger, and just kind of taking that as inspiration and using that for new stuff. So that's where I'm at with my Necrons so far. Like I said, this is 25 power level. It's enough to start playing some games. Not that I'll be playing games anytime soon with the pandemic going on, but I got them ready for when I want to. So what I got left from the Indomitus set to paint is the 2nd unit of 10 Warriors, the 2nd unit of 3 Scarabs, and then the Lord, the Overlord, the Lieutenant model, which I can't remember his name, and the Scorpec Lord. So I'll probably do the Lieutenant next, and then I'll throw the Warriors and the Scarabs in there between the characters to kind of break it up. The Scorpec Lord will probably take the longest, and then that's like 1,000 points right there. I'll be up to 1,000 and ready for some of the new Necron models. Definitely going to add some Immortals and some Lich Guard in at the very least, and but I'm excited to see what comes out new. I really like the new Monolith. I really like the look of a lot of the new Necron stuff they showed off. The Shard of the Void Dragon, some of the other stuff, like I said, the big version of the Reanimator with the gun, and then some of the other stuff that's kind of hidden in the background. The Silent King, of course. I'm going to give him a big gold cape. I'm excited for that. So as I paint up more Necrons, you know, I'll show them off, of course, on here and on my website, on my social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Search Mengel Managers. You can find me on there. Until then, I guess, you know, off to paint some more Necrons, and I've got these guys ready to go. got my Nurgle demons that I can also use in 40k, so maybe I'll test out some games with this myself and see how they go.